time. Okay, so it's not morning time for you. It's midday.
It's just coming up to 2, and I think this is the first Zoom convention I've ever done in daylight. So thank you for that. It's like daylight.
It's the first for a lot of things, right? It's the first EXP Expo. It's the first broadcast officially for the experience as a channel. First daylight interview. By the way, that you're glowing. It's so beautiful.
This is my haven't been outside in a year face. It's like no tan.
Yeah, we're both very pale individuals, and that's how I rock it. Rock it too.
I'm honoured to be here. Thank you for having me on, and the first person as well. So that's cool.
I am going to tell you this morning. Oh, actually, no, I did it last night. Last night, I tore apart my house looking for my very coveted little eyeball pin that you gave me. I wanted to wear it with all my heart, and I swear it's got to be on a lanyard that I wore sometime and is hanging somewhere that I could not find. But
I wouldn't worry. I'll give you another one next time I see you.
I'm sure I've got it. Yeah. My new goal is to acquire the butterfly pin.
That is nice. That is really nice. I was going to say I should really have one here, but it's yeah, no, they've been tidied away. See, no conventions. I sent out all my thought bubble stock before Christmas, and like the next thing I have going out is when the Sleeping Beauties graphic novel comes out, which I am actually like stoked about. And then at that point, it goes on my shop, and then it's like everything from the shop is go again. You know, if people want the graphic novel and stuff will go out with it, and at that point it'll be like, you know, shops open. So yeah, that's kind of, I have a whole load of drawing to do, and then I'll open the shop up. I'm not very good at doing two things at once, so drawing then shop.
You have a lot of things on your plate. So I have a question for you. A lot of people probably watching are probably thinking that same thing. We all know you from your work in comic books, and the pins were a surprise to me that you made those. Are there other things that you do that people might not be aware of at all?
Well, probably most. I was going to say I don't know how much people really know. I mean, I spend most of my time, if not all my time, trying to draw comics, which is particularly for me quite a time-consuming experience. But also, and I think I'm not quite sure why this is a thing for me and not so much for other people, but I do like to make things. That I'm an architect by profession, and you know, and I'm not practicing right now, but I am qualified to practice right now, and I have done until fairly recently. And it's just a thing I like doing. I like making material things. Like I like making books, and that's why I care so. I mean, particularly my image books. That's why they're so personal. But like, I like making stuff. So I have these pins, which are I have a pin for each book. So the current one for Sleeping Beauties is the giant golden blue moth, which is the current thing. But I like materials. It's like when people come to my table at conventions, it's like it's the touchy-feely table. So, you know, people are feeling the paper and they're stroking. I mean, our books are actually quite strokeable, and stroking the books. And I have tea towels, which I need to top you up with. And so things like this, I have these big white screen printed tea towels, and it's a way of people being able to own the black and white original art without actually having to pay very much. It's the price of, 3 floppies gets you big piece of screen printed art. And so they do quite well, and I have at least one for each book. So that'll be doing one for Sleeping Beauties will come next.
I know that those in particular are highly coveted because I believe at New York Comic Con, people did a look over there and took a bunch, didn't they? That was
no. The thing is, I mean, how could I put this? People go to conventions and shops, and there's many books, and people will be going around with like an armful of books, and they'd be like, "And what else can I have?" And it's like, well, I haven't got one of those. So if you have something that is of a type that is not else available,
It's that transatlantic internet connection.
It is.
There she is. She's back.
my internet just quit out. I don't know what that was. I'm so sorry. It just was like I was in mid-sentence and then it was gone. I was going to say, yeah, no, people, my tea towels, people can like buy them and they can wrap their books up in them for travel, and it's like they're just useful. And I've had this conversation with people where people are like, oh, I want to keep it nice to put it on my wall, and I'm like, look, there's going to be another one. I do one every year. It's like, just use it in your kitchen, wrap your books up in it. It's washable. They're really good. You can wash it. And so yeah, it's I try not to be overly precious about them. I mean, it's like, this is the thing. It's like, you've lost my pin. You have another one. There's plenty more. Or somebody else has one or something. So yeah, it's nice. I think something that's really important to me is that art should be for everybody. This is really, 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 in fact, this is it. It's like, I've dealt with the fine art stuff, but I've worked for quite a long time in architecture at the art end of things. And when you're on site in a big muddy hole, and there's somebody next to you who's digging the hole, and there's somebody just there who's waiting to pour the concrete, and you all know that there's this end thing that you're trying to achieve, which is this beautiful thing that will enrich the bit of the city that you're in by people interacting with it, living it and working it and walking past it, and all these things. And everybody knows, from the person who's digging the hole in the ground to the person who's wrapping up the reinforcement steel. And like, I know they know, and I know they appreciate it, and we are all doing it together. And therefore, I really, really strongly believe that everybody is capable of appreciating art and understanding it and getting something out of it. And comics are just the business for that, really. In fact, they're the only thing that is quite so democratic.
I want to touch back on something that you said, that to you, the tea towel was just like an extra object to wrap in your books and be useful. But like the pin, I think a great many people attach an emotional memory to those objects. Like to me, it got handed to me by you. That's a special pin to me. It's not just a pin. And the towel to them isn't just a tea towel. And you handed the tea towel to them, and they got to talk to you, and they're going to remember every time they touch the tea towel, it's going to be the discussions, the wonderful time that you spent talking to them at the convention. It'll be forever in their memory.
It's true. But also, I would say, I am in their kitchen every day, which is more than nearly any other piece of merch will do.
It's true. It's a brilliant.
It's true. It's very. I won't say sneaky, but it's not unuseful. It's like, you're being useful drying the pots. I'm okay with that.
Were you inspired to make a tea towel by seeing someone else doing it, or was it?
No. It comes down to be honest, it comes down to the materials again. It's just the black ink on the very crisp white cotton is a lovely, lovely thing. It's the people who make them for me, they're really, I mean, I can just appreciate a nice thing, so it's the cotton is kind of slightly textured, and it's very white, and it's kind of starchy, and then the black ink is very black, and it suits my work well, and I just like them as things, and and they come tied up in ribbons and stuff, and yeah, I think it just suits a lot of purposes, and they are lovely things. It's like black and white stuff. I mean, everything I do, and I find it very hard to address this, is everything I do comes back to being an architect again. It's like I'm doing people's kitchens. again, you know. So many things I do come back to things I was already interested in. I think with comics particularly, and it is, again, it's whatever you were doing before, what you do now is a product of everything that you are. So, for example, I've had this conversation with, say, Jen Bartel. I think it's a very good example, where she's worked in product design and she's worked in retail and she's worked in a certain kind of retail. And all these things come together with her illustration work to make her business. It's like she knows what she's doing exactly. She's done it before. She's a product of all her previous experiences. And I think we all are that, which is why I think it's kind of helpful to have done something else, and you can just bring it all in. And it's not, I mean, not everything we do is the art on the page. I mean, you know, I organize a group on Facebook called Comic Artists Group, where it's a group of artists, and basically it's not a particularly fancy thing, but for example, through lockdown, we've all been able to check in on each other. We have quite lonely lives anyway. You know, it's not exactly like you're getting out a lot with this job. So, for example, you know, but it's when you can't go out, that's a whole other thing. And so, for example, say, how are people? Are you okay? I don't think many people have been ill. We missed Alison Brown, who ran the Cartoon Museum front of house in London. She passed away this week. And I think it's only just really starting to hit that this is us as well. And she was very, very, very central to comics in the UK. I mean, everybody pretty much knew her. I didn't know her terribly well, but like I've met her several times, and like she was a big organizer and what's the word? Morale person. Mm-hmm. So she will be very much missed. And so I think the reality is coming to us now. You know, we're coming up to we're 10 months of being stuck indoors, and it looks like we're going to have a bit more. And yeah, it's good to check in on each other. So no, nice to see. I mean, this is particularly nice that, you know, how are you? How's things over there?
Everything is, I live in Texas, and Texas has had a little more freedom than, like, say, California. California's been in a hard shutdown for a while, and so is New York. I've had a lot more contact with other human beings face to face because of that. We're really safe about having retail, but I can totally understand the not having what I get to do, which is to go out and at least see my customers 6 feet away. That I get to have those connections. It would be really, really hard to, not get to see any of them for 10 months would be impossibly hard. Because part of reason I do retail is because I like people, and part of my deal is I love giving hugs. So that's been the hardest part for me, is I haven't gotten to give a customer a hug in the entire 10 months. That
is hard. But you are, I mean, with I was going to say comic book experience, you are available. It's like, it's not like you're not there. And also you're available here, which is like crossing the Atlantic, Jen. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's all right, I think.
Technology is cool, man. I love technology. It's
what did we do before this? What did I do before the internet? Blimey, this job would be impossible. Firstly, I would not be in this job if it was not for Twitter, because I didn't even know comics existed. And secondly, I really would not be able to do this job because all my books are set in America, where I have been. I've been more now, but definitely less than 10 times. I forget how many times I've been, maybe 8 times or something like that. But my job is entirely set there, and my bosses are all there, and my editor Elizabeth is in California. It's all. This current thing is in West Virginia, which is a challenge, I have to say. because it's not like, what I have to remember with Sleeping Beauties is that it isn't the well publicized poor bits, frankly. It's just people. And I have to get a bit further than the surface that reaches the UK, the surface imagery that reaches the UK. I have to talk to people in West Virginia and go, and where it, you know, what is where you are like? And, you know, Heidi, who I talked to, who lives in Charleston, and she was like, this is my favorite bookshop. And like, we'll include that. And I was like, where do people go shopping? You know, what's your car like? What's your house like? Where do you go? And that is, to me, really, really, really important, that you have to kind of address real people stuff rather than perceived news headlines. You know, it's like, what do you like doing? Where do you go? What's your car like? What's your house like? What's your garden like? Do you have an allotment? Do you grow vegetables? What do you eat? Or, you know, where do you like going? You know, do you have favorite places in West Virginia? You know, I made a map, which is in, I think, Sleeping Beauties 5, maybe, and it's, amongst other places, there's a number of places where people are from. I had to basically make the map up, because if it's made up in West Virginia, you can't kind of just pick a bit of West Virginia and use it. You have to have a piece of collated West Virginia. And so it's a number of places where people in West Virginia who've seen my work or I've interacted with, where they're from, in these quite strange place names, some of them. And then also there's a number of family names of people as well, because of course some of the place names are like that. They're where they are people's names. And so this is a bit like you being in the book, actually. It's a massively personal book. It's really, this is something that I don't think, going back to things people don't really know, is pretty much most of my work is really, really personal, in one way or another. So, for example, I mean, Sleeping Beauties is almost entirely real people, many of whom are in the US. I mean, now we're doing this on the internet. Of course, I'm not limited to them being here, which they have been. Hit Girl in Mumbai was all real people, mostly British Asians, or people of, I was going to say Indian descent, but they're not even that. They're sort of Nepalese, Trinidadian, Polish, many people. But all this making of the book is deeply personal. You know, it's like, I bought you, for example, I bought you a prison uniform, which was frankly super gross. I'm very disappointed you're not wearing it, by the way. And you've got to wear it. You've got to wear it at some time during this convention. And I bought you a uniform, and you wore your uniform, and you did some stuff, and then I drew you in the comic book, which took quite a significant amount of time to do. And you're doing stuff. You're doing stuff in it. And oh my goodness, it's there somewhere. And I did that one.
This is how detailed. I mean, you can. There's no.
That's definitely you.
That's me.
I think it's great. So it's all really personal, and so not only is it the look of the thing, but there's the making of the thing. So I'm dealing with people all the time. I think in Sleeping Beauties, in this particular issue I have on the table at the moment, which is in front of me, which part of my glowy glow is from my Cintiq, which is switched on. It's my white page. I think there's 24 different speaking parts, and that's just the speaking parts in this single issue. And then in the next issue, I've counted them. There's something like that again, and it's not all the same people. I think you're back in the next issue, actually. And it's just an awful lot of people. And so they all have to look really different. Everybody has to be carefully differentiated. you know, it takes ages. Drawing people's hair. I was up at like 1:30 last night drawing somebody's long hair, and it's like, you know, it's a lot of it. So yeah, that's one of the things people don't see is this for me is a very, very social job in a slightly weird way, but I like it like that. And it is important to people that when I got into this, before I drew any comics, as I said, I was working as an architect and I got made redundant. And when I was made redundant, I was going to job interviews and things. And then I got really bored of going to job interviews. And I was like, I really should be doing something else with my time. And then the job interviews on top of that. And then, so what I was doing was I was drawing people's children for them. And this was, I thought, do some drawing. So I would draw people's children. And it might take me a day to draw somebody. I mean, it was a struggle, to say the least. And then you would give it to the parents. And it would be like really, 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 really important to them. Like, as you were saying earlier. And like, maybe it had taken me a day. But I know people who I've done artwork for, and it's still sitting on their TV 10 years later. You know, they see it every day. And these things are very important to people. And sometimes more than you can know. There are people, for example, in Sleeping Beauties, where, as I think is fairly widely known, the novel of Sleeping Beauties is about a gender binary, men and women, and you know, and what happens. And I think when the book was complete, that Stephen and Owen really realised that this was not actually quite how things are, and they asked for the comic to be done differently. And so in the comic, there is not a gender binary actually, and there are many people who I've involved, and also it's written into the script, and there's aspects of the story that are different from the novel in this way. But I've involved a number of real people who are drawn into the comic, and it is important for them to be in those spaces and be present, even if nobody else gets to know. They know, and I know, we know. And so it's I'm trying. Inclusion is really important. It's like, I did not need to do this, but it's meaningful, and therefore it's worthwhile, I think. So yeah. So Sleeping Beauties has a whole bunch of people in it who I may not identify publicly, but they know, and those people who care to know will know. So no, that is something that is different from the novel to the comic. And if people want to know more about that, we did a podcast for Thought Bubble where Elizabeth Bry, who is the editor and involved in the adaptation, comes on and talks somewhat about it. That the fact that this comic is an adaptation, it's a huge deal for what we're doing and how the thing works. I think people have to remember that Sleeping Beauties was not written to be a comic, hence apart from anything, it's a massive number of people. No page budget here, and no, and yeah, hence many characters and so much hair, and actually it's not, you know, a lot of it's set in a women's prison, which is not actually something that offers a great deal art-wise. You know, it's not exactly the Goblin Market. You know, the best you're going to get out of people in prison is people.
Yeah,
And
having worked in a women's prison for a year and a half, I can tell you, you're doing a great job.
I would hope so. I mean, that was what's quite nice about this is there's another woman involved called Lily, and Lily plays Vanessa, who is James has asked a question. I'll come back to you in a minute, James, and answer that. There is an answer to that. Lily historically has been a police officer in the UK, and it's kind of quite hard to describe. And it's maybe a very British thing, but this is strange to us, but she knows how to wear the uniform. And
I understand that comment.
We for example, in the UK, we see a lot of people from the US dressed in various uniforms as almost recreation, but here we don't do that at all. And so wearing a uniform is meaningful in a slightly different way here. And she wears the uniform well, and she is in the comic as Van. And having people who've actually been trained to be in that environment, it makes a huge difference. I mean, for example, at one point she has to have a gun and shoot people, she does actually shoot someone. She saves you, in fact. And yes, and she was actually trained to do that. So I got her. We have things called red guns. I will get one. Hang on a moment.
Yes. I love to learn all the behind.
No, I've lost it. That's not very good. We aren't allowed to have real guns in the UK. So there is a thing called red guns, where they make the replica gun in the same weight, but it's made out of red resin.
Okay.
And they're very weird looking things. I don't know where it is. I have a taser in here, which is a red gun. And so she's holding the red gun, but they are trained to do that. So, but to go back to the question of James. Hi, James. How do I research locations in the US? Yes, absolutely. Google Earth is my friend. And also, I mean, there's a number of ways of doing it. I ask people about locations. For example, if Heidi hadn't helped me with Charleston in West Virginia, I would have been completely lost, because I was Googling around for absolutely ages, looking for the shopping district in Charleston. And she just told me where it was, basically. And I needed that. And then she told me what she liked about it. And I was like, okay, got it now. But like, I did need to be told. And I use newspaper reports, and I look on the internet, and I spend a lot of time on Google Earth, kind of looking around. And I use articles, and then I sometimes use a newspaper article to find a place, and then I can go into it on Google Earth and then find locations. For example, I was going back to my location map I did. I was looking for. Going to put this. There's a difference between a not well off area and an area which is well lived in, and you do need a bit of help to find that. And when you see it, and if that makes sense,
Yes.
So yes, I use everything I have at hand. I mean, I'm in the UK. It's like we really do not have any of that stuff here. I live in a very small brick house, which I don't think a housing type appears in the US at all. This is a really small Victorian house, which I love deeply, but it's quite tight. And it never astonishes me to see how much space you guys have. And we don't have the space. We live pretty much on top of each other, which is why I've not left the house. I think I've left the house 6 times since last March.
Wow.
Hence the Indle glow. So it's tight here. But making a comic remotely is actually quite helpful, because of course there's a level of editing you get. I only see what I really want to see largely. People ask me this about making Hit Girl in Mumbai. Have you been to Mumbai to research this? And that's like, I could have. And with hindsight, I don't think it would have done any harm. Now I've been there. But at the time, I thought I wouldn't be able to see the wood for the trees. I thought, I'm going to rock up in Mumbai, and I'm going to see so many people, and I'm just going to be, I was going to say, shocked and awed by the amazingness. And so I drew Hit Girl in Mumbai, and I did what I could. And I talked to people, and I took advice, and I used Google Earth, and I used a lot of research. And then when the book was done, Mumbai Comic Con invited me out, which was just awesome, like amazing. And I went to Mumbai, and the volunteers of the convention took me into central Mumbai. And if you go to Mumbai, it's basically, it's probably like Los Angeles in that traffic, actually Houston as well, maybe, traffic is going to be a thing. You know, it's like, but the experience of being in traffic in Mumbai, I actually got to see so much. And I was like, yeah, actually, I did get this. You know, this whole sort of thing that a lot of Mumbai is about transit. You know, people are coming in from outside to work, and there's office parks, and it's. I think it made me realise something I hadn't really understood, which was that everybody in Mumbai is working. It's not something I won't say I didn't expect it, because I sort of did, but I saw it's a very dense place. There's a lot of people everywhere, coming, going, working, doing whatever, and none of them in the what must have been thousands and thousands of people I saw, none of them were doing nothing. You know, you might go to other places and there's a bit of hanging around going on, and there was no hanging around. It's like, this is amazing, actually. No hanging around going on in Mumbai whatsoever. And I was like, shit, you know, there is intention and energy here.
I have to say,
and not very long, I'm going to be working for them.
The effort you put into that really is really good. There's mistakes that are made. For example, Scarlet Spider was based in Houston, which is it was a great book. The mistake that they made is they put a character that needed to swing between tall buildings in a city that has a downtown that has tall buildings, and then no tall buildings anywhere else. So he would have had to only solve crime or prevent crime in downtown Houston, which it's a big open space. So, you know, there's only, the book kind of ended after, 16 issues or something, probably because there was no more crime to fight.
Yeah, that is the thing. And we've had that with Sleeping Beauties as well, where tall buildings have been written into it. And I've found the tallest buildings I could find, which were not really very tall, but like you adapt things, you know? I mean, Charleston may not have skyscrapers, but it's got a couple of big buildings, and churches aren't small, and you use what you can, and if it's not there, then you use what you have. And I mean, there's other things, geography, for example. West Virginia, it's got hills, it's got steep bits, it's got a lot of trees, and but it's got some. I was going to say quite cute geography. That's really not the word. It's not cute at all. It's got some great stuff there for drawing, and which I appreciate. And I draw a lot of trucks, which is also fine. Now, I mean, you can't see this. I have excuse me a moment. I'm going to turn this around so you can appreciate my truck collection. There is a truck mountain. That's my truck stack. Sorry to make everybody seasick there. And no, so I have a pile of. We don't have those here either. I only know one person who's owned one of those. They tend to be a bit out of town, and we don't have big trucks here because we don't have room for them, and or we can't afford the fuel, so we just don't have that stuff. Yeah. So no, I have tiny and not so tiny trucks. They're everywhere. I mean, like, this one's for this issue.
That's hilarious. So yeah. From what I know you prefer to have either physical objects to reference or photos to reference. Is that just so you can get it exactly right?
It's, how can I put this? My main thing is about relations, one thing to another. So, for example, I've got the squash, and although I can draw a squash, it's drawing a squash that is consistently the right size. So the squash, it's does this make sense? And it's a bit like I don't drive, and so I find it quite difficult to get people in relation to their steering wheel and then the rest of the car and the right size and where they're sitting. So, for example, I sit myself back in my chair and hold the steering wheel. My head is really small, my hands are really big, and the wheel is like that. Mm-hmm. And this, I find, it's really, really important to get that stuff right, because particularly something like driving or shooting a gun, or I was going to say holding a squash. These are things people know well and know better than I do. I mean, I will show you something funny. Somebody gave me this. It's a mini steering wheel. It's an actual steering wheel from a Mini. And my friend Piper, who works on cars, he gave that to me as a gift last year. And I was like, this is amazing. This is a perfect principle. That is actually my absolute best thing. But what it enables you to do is you can ask them to hold it in a driving position. They hold it in the right place. And it's kind of, it helps me get things right. I do an awful lot of drawing of people in cars. And as a non-driver and non-car owner, I really need that. Because otherwise you go like this.
So I'll tell you Americans driving cars with this funny. Old women tend to push themselves way up close to the wheel.
Yeah.
Close to their face.
Yeah.
And the younger you are and maler you are, you tend to lean back as far as you can away from the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. And these things are really important. These things are really important. It's this stuff. Hi, Trish. This stuff tells the story. It's like we're talking about steering wheels and where you sit in the car and what you're doing. And it's like, this is absolutely key. This is what we're doing. How do you drive? One hand on the wheel? No hand. Hands down there, one hand there, one hand out the window. What are you doing? Are you talking? Are you, how do you use your phone? Are you like this? Are you like this? Are you like this? Or do you have it hands free? So what's going on? Exactly. Yeah. Not so easy to draw all that. Sleeping Beauties is actually, the novel is close to 700 pages of conversation. It's a hard book. And you tell the story through everything else. And I think of all the books I've drawn, and possibly all the books I could draw, it's one of the most edited in that way, where it's 700 pages of conversation in a women's prison.
Yeah. He likes to get people's psyche and their minds and how they think, and he always tackles characters that aren't like you and me, so he can put it really in that fantasy world that he gets into. It's like completely unexplainable.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this could totally be right.
Yeah. Also with tigers as well. I should say, I don't actually have a tiger. I was like thinking maybe there is one here somewhere, but no tigers. But have to manage with some things. But like, you use what you can. I mean, it is a monthly book. It's supposedly a monthly book. It's really hard to draw quickly, just because of the amount of stuff that it's really hard to condense a 700-page novel down into 200 pages of comments. Like, really hard.
So I have a question for you specifically about when we see the women show up in whatever the other side is. Were there hints about what that's supposed to look like in the book? Because I don't remember those, or did you just have to come up with your own thing?
There are, I've come up with my own thing. I mean, bearing in mind, again, we're still in West Virginia. But also, it's in West Virginia. It's not quite so easy to do. But also the other thing about it is it's relatively straightforward to draw without reference as well. There is that, but it's a bit of a gift in that way. I think the hard thing is when you're drawing something that is hardcore real, that you need the reference more than if it's not real. then it can be what it needs to be, or it can be a bit more what's the word, relaxed in how you do it. I mean, yeah, no, that it's not unhelpful. That, I mean, at the moment, I mean, the only thing I'd say about that is it takes me longer to draw things that are somewhat dishevelled. There is that.
Yeah. Lots more folds.
Yeah, just more stuff. It's not clean. Or, I mean, also, yeah, there is more to draw when things are in disarray. End of, and that's kind of, it's not unenjoyable. I mean, to be really honest, I'm not that far on that. There's not that much of the other side shown yet, and also, there's the way the novel's written, and then there's the way that America actually is. That, for example, and this is my understanding, is that shopping is not always a particularly maximal experience. You have shops which are out on roads somewhere, or say going to the supermarket is not what it is in other countries. I mean, for us, we have all our stuff out on the street, pretty much everywhere, and you don't so much. It's different, and I think even from one part of the country to another, it's different. It's a bit like you're talking about, Houston having or not having tall buildings. It's like where the novel is written and where it's actually taking place, slightly different things. And I don't know. I'm making some adjustments for that. It's kind of.
I think it would be lovely if Houston had some of their groceries kind of like out. Like I like the fruit stands that you see in images of other places. But the truth is, man,
what I'd say about West Virginia is that, in my understanding, and if there's people listening from West Virginia, come at me, give me your stuff. I want to know. But like, if I'm getting this wrong, but it strikes me that shopping is not a very maximal experience. It's like, and it's. We're talking about Sleeping Beauties. Hi, Trish, which is set in West Virginia. And hi, Richard. And people are going around in their cars, and they'll go to a place and do a thing, and not lots and lots of shopping going down, and or indeed, if there is, it's not right out on the street happening. Or it's not in my face anyway. And if this is why I had to ask Heidi about where her favorite commercial district was, because I wasn't going to find it on my own. And yeah, it's just people are doing different things. Yeah.
So I want to talk a bit about architecture. Has anything that you've made, is it somewhere you can drive by and get to enjoy?
Oh yeah, in fact, nearly all of it. I specialised in large public works, so yeah, you'd know it. I was, amongst other things I've done, in no particular order. I mean, all my stuff, with the exception of something at the Potsdamer Platz in Berlin, which puts an age on me, is in the UK. I don't think I've done anything in the US at all, probably. And which goes to show, it's the fact I can't remember my project shows how long it has been. It's not so much. I practiced as an architect for 25 years, and I cannot remember all my projects, to be honest. And the things I have done, I worked on the control tower at Heathrow, which is the one that looks like an ice cream. I was one of the site architects. I was the person who set out all the stuff on the Greenwich Peninsula. I was the site architect of the Millennium Dome, which is now called the O2, which is the big old dome in East London, which has concert venues, which people might know. I wrote the design guide for King's Cross train station, which if people come to Thought Bubble and you come through London, you will go through King's Cross to get the train. It's a very widely known train station. Right in the centre of the city. What have I done? I feel like I've done a lot. Oxford University, not Oxford University, Oxford Brookes University new bit, which was very, very large and won some awards, which was kind of nice. I'm actually a 20th century conservation specialist, so if people know about the Balfron Tower, I did the survey on that. I was an expert policy. I'm an expert policy advisor on Una Goldfinger. So I basically specialise in the really ugly bits of fairly recent mid-century modernism, which this is my advantage. The thing I've got at most in my various jobs is I tend to pick up the jobs that other people don't really want, that are a bit ugly or a bit difficult, and not really the famous things or the lovely things, and I make something of them. So, you know, this kind of unfashionable, as it was at the time, it's very fashionable now, but at the time, hugely unfashionable, brutal, ugly, concrete tower blocks that nobody really wanted to live in, and go and survey them and find the good bits about them and then help them be refurbished. And so I've done a couple of big housing estates, which I'm massively proud of. But, like, you know, helping something not have mouldy curtains is not particularly, what's the word? Starry? Not fancy.
Yeah.
Not fancy, but it is meaningful to me. And hopefully, I think more meaningful to them, actually. There's a big difference between having frozen mouldy curtains and not having frozen mouldy curtains, I think you'll find. And yeah, so there's the housing estates are very well known, but people don't see housing estates in quite the same way as big fancy buildings. Depends who you are, I guess. And so Millennium Dome, King's Cross Station, Control Tower. Feels like not very much. I feel I've done more than that. What have you been doing?
I suspect that if you put together like a paid trip to visit all of the cool sites that you've had your hands in, and you could like do this site, I'm going to tell you all the cool stuff about. Like, you would have a lot of takers, because I know.
Yeah, I've done. It's got a good geographical spread. There was the big office building I did in South London called Palestra, which is right near Waterloo train station, and like, I think architecture is a team thing, and there are lots of other people involved, but that one, more than any other, I spent more work on for various reasons. And I think people don't really it's a bit like comics are like this, where people think, you know, you all earn a fortune and there's millions of people doing it, and it's like, actually it's often one person just sitting in their bedroom or in a room like this. And Palestra is slightly one of those things where I don't think people quite believe, you know, how it was done. But no, I mean, it's like, as I say, coming back to comics, you know, it has this huge outcome. You know, what am I watching at the moment? I'm watching Disney Plus, and I'm anticipating more Marvel-y type stuff. I very, very much like superhero comics, actually, and I am currently following Nick Klein's. Of course I do. And I'm currently following, my favourite one at the moment is Nick Klein's Thor, which I think he's an amazing, amazing artist. And like, I can just, the atmosphere of what he's got going in the books, where it's like, it's so imaginative, and yet it's so present. I think is amazing, and I'm anticipating all this amazing sort of Marvel stuff, and yet that stuff, which has this huge outcome, is made by people sitting in small rooms around the world with their head down and headphones on, you know, and the coffee and you know, their pens and their squashes,
yeah,
and their, as I say. Steering wheels. If anybody wants to donate me their steering wheel, you're very welcome. Yeah, all of that. And yeah, send me a picture of it. Yeah, this is a good one. Send me a picture of your truck, and I will try and put it in the comic. If you what is it? You can just what's the word? You can just email me. My email address, which entirely public, is Alice Sanders, ALISSAMP at P for person at gmail.com. Email me a picture of your truck, or if you have a car or whatever, send me a picture of your truck, and I'll see if I can work it into the comic, because we don't have any vehicles like that here at all. And you know, frankly, I've only got like 5. Really, West Virginia has more than that.
All right, we've got about 10 minutes, and I just want to say to anyone that's watching all day long, this is a totally interactive convention, so you can interact a lot. Please, please, please put comments, questions.
Yeah, ask me questions. I'm not here much.
Throw it up, because it's your opportunity to, you know, save yourself from some flight money and a hotel money, but still get to see someone that you really love.
Yeah, is there any questions I didn't answer? I think I've probably got them all so far. What else? In terms of when am I coming over? When I'm allowed out and when I'm allowed in? I don't know at the moment when our next convention experience is going to be. I would expect that the next one I would do would probably be New York. Or depending when things are. I mean, I had hoped, to be really honest, that conventions would be together by this autumn, and I'm not convinced now that that's going to be the case, because as much as we have vaccines, I'm not sure that enough people will have been vaccinated to be comfortable, and I may not, you know, to do it. So maybe. I mean, I have a very the conventions I like. Well, actually, I like all conventions. I like the whole thing. Frankly, it's just like you go to a place and you find out about it, and then you go to have some meals in that place, and then you talk to a bunch of people in that place. And I think my favourite conventions are the ones which are local. So, for example, I know a lot of people don't think of C2E2 as a local convention, but relatively, from my point of view, it is, where it's gathering up people from the Midwest. And you'll meet people at C2E2 you don't meet anywhere else. And it's a certain kind of convention. And I really like it. There was a bar at the end of my row, and people would buy the beer in the morning and come up the row. And at every table, they would stop and they would buy a book. And there were people going around with huge armfuls of books. And I like this. That this is like...
might have the largest, in my reckoning, the largest, what they would call an artist alley. It's like aisle A through U, double.
Oh, yeah.
And it's huge.
But also, in my experience, a lot of book buyers, they're drinking the beer and they're buying the books. And I'm like, these are my people. Yeah. I like this. Where is there a place to buy your books that you can recommend? My shop. You go to www.alisonsampson.com. I have a shop and I do ship stuff. And actually, because books are printed, I can ship them from here to there. And I am doing, for when the graphic novel of Sleeping Beauties comes out, I'm doing original art book plates. And it's the only way. That's it. It has a shop. It's got /shop has a shop. And I'm doing original art book plates, which is the only original art that there's going to be for this book at all. And it's quite bargain-tastic. And the other place you can get my book is, of course, from Jen at spacecadets.com. Is it spacecadets.com? Is that right? Anyway,
SpaceCadetsCollection.com.
Something.
I know, because I was just coding on it like while you guys were talking.
Yeah. Something like that. And so there's my shop, there's buying things from Jeff. You can get it most places. The only thing I'd say is if you can avoid getting it from Amazon, that would be cool, because I think Jeff Bezos already has enough money, frankly. The other good place, is obviously London comic shops. Gosh Comics. Now, this is not so much for my book, because pretty much everything else. They have a very nice curation of gorgeous graphic novels. They're very good. They're extremely good at selecting stuff. And my other favorite one, which is OK Comics, which is in Leeds. And when we go up to Thought Bubble, OK Comics is of course you can chop directly from me. But OK Comics in Leeds is in this gorgeous Victorian arcade, and it's not a massive shop, but Jared there has a really good curation of stuff. And when I go, I like try and buy stuff from him, and he always has something that, I think one of the nice things about going into comic shops is you go in and you're like, I'm going in to get my Thor comic, and then there's like, oh, what's that? And you're like, oh, I want one of those, and it's like, nice. And Jared pretty much has that for me. Actually, gosh, OK Comics and Gosh Comics, good curation. And like, as I say, a nice material selection. They've got beautiful graphic novels and things. And it's like, if you're going to buy print, and I don't always buy print. I mean, I can't store it. Look at my house. Digital comics help me a bit. If I'm going to buy print, I want nice print. I have to say, IDW just emailed me the advert for the Sleeping Beauties graphic novel yesterday for approval. It is looking pretty wonderful. Yeah.
I'm excited.
Get that book. You can pre-order it now. Pre-order the graphic novel for Sleeping Beauties. It's going to come in 2 parts. So this is part 1, and part 2, I believe, is October, something like that. October, November. They haven't solicited it yet. Or maybe they have solicited it. I'm not sure. So it is coming in 2 parts, but the graphic novel for Sleeping Beauties is good. And because the whole thing was written as a novel, in my opinion, it is better read as a piece. Although, obviously, I mean, IDW have just made such a wonderful job of it. I'm just like, I'm normally really picky and weird about comics where I'm like, could have done that better. And it's like, no, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm always really at the end of every issue of Sleeping Beauties going, okay, now I have to wait for the next issue.
I'm so sorry. I have to make, it's made by hand, It's like, not only is it made by hand, I drew every single hair on everybody's flipping head myself. I went, I went on the internet and bought the cars. It's like, these things are not small enterprises. I mean, it may only be one person, but it's a lot of work.
There you go, everybody. Just blame any lateness on my hair, because my hair is really hard to draw.
No, your hair is actually really great to draw. It's the wiggly waves. It's like, it keeps my fingers exercised. The hard ones to draw is facial stubble. And also when people have pigmentation on their faces. Yeah, sorry, Carl. It's you. It's getting it the same every time. There's also people who have a bit of stubble often change it up quite a bit. And it's like, there's a lot going on, there where you're like, where does it stop? And there's also people with pigmentation. I mean, if people have brown skin and sometimes they have some darker pigmentation on their faces, that is a complete pain, because I think it isn't obvious to other people that people's skin can be more than one color. And so for me to depict that, I mean, there's a lady in issue 6 who's had a stroke and her face is what is it? Left side of the head. A bit like that. And like, I'm looking forward to people saying I can't draw faces straight. It's like, no, she's had a stroke. She's in a wheelchair. It's like, life goes on. It doesn't just stop because you have a slightly unfortunate event. You carry on, even if your face isn't quite as it was before. So yeah, it's I like to get these things right. It's like, inclusion is important. When I've had a stroke, when I'm 60, I don't want to be shuffled off either. It's important not to shuffle people off.
Well, thank you so much.
Of shuffling people off, we got about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, Alison, do us a favor. Tell us where people can find you on the social medias, where people can, other tthan the website, where people can find you and things like that.
I'm on Twitter at Alice Samp. That's at ALISS_SAMP. I've sent my email. You can just write to me and ask me stuff. I don't mind. My shop's there. I'm on Facebook. It's not a private account. You can just come on Facebook and follow me there. And it's like, I post art there sometimes. I'm not as on the internet as I would like. And I'm on Instagram as Alison.Sampson. And my Alison has one L, British spelling. And that's kind of it. It's, I think. Oh, yeah. And I've got on the Thought Bubble YouTube stream, I did 3 talks just before Christmas. If you want to know about Sleeping Beauties, I'm talking to Ron Wimberley and Emma Rios about Place. And there is a horror comics one with Steve Niles and John Lees and Abigail Harding. And so if you want to hear about, if you should wish, I am on YouTube on the Thought Bubble channel relatively recently as well. And otherwise, come and find me at a convention. I'm always happy to chat. I mean, frankly, if I travel to the US, it's nice to sell books, but really that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to meet you. You know, I'm here to say, send me pictures of your trucks, you know. Like, I'm here to find out about stuff and meet people.
Next convention, I owe you a meal, Alison. We'll go and we'll spread together.
That would be lovely. I think we had oysters last time. It's like, yeah. Roll on the next one.
Well, we will be back. I want to thank Alison for being here. We will be back in just about a minute with a cosplay panel with Cheryl. Jen, this is going to be a problem all day. You're going to have to keep me on track. I already forgot the name of Cheryl's thing, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. But we'll be back in just about a minute and 15